The new limited time game mode in Battlefield 2042, known as Control, did something very interesting with the new Ascension point system, and today I kind of want to talk about why I actually think they need to become permanent not only in 2042 but in the future of Battlefield games as well. If you're a fan of Battlefield, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. There's going to be plenty more Battlefield content on the way, but with that being said, let's get stuck right into it. Now, for those of you who haven't actually played the new mode Control, Ascension points are really just like a small mechanic in the game that are pretty much just points that you earn through your actions. So for example, getting kills, capturing points, stuff like that, and you'll earn points in that specific match that then allow you to pretty much purchase vehicles later on in the game, or even early on if there are enough vehicles available at that time. Now, for anyone who's played Battlefront 2, this is essentially the same as the battle point system that was in that game, which was a really good system, and I think pretty much the majority of the player base really enjoyed it. There were some people that said it wasn't, the best idea because it wasn't the same in the previous game, but I think most people probably agreed it was a really good system and it helped with like the balancing and the pacing of a game in general. Obviously, being a big Battlefront 2 player myself, if you guys didn't know, that's where I started YouTube. That was pretty much the first thing that I noticed when playing the new mode Control, that this was pretty much the same as the battle point system in that game. Now, initially I actually wondered if they were maybe testing how this went for maybe the next Battlefield game, or even potentially for this game in Battlefield 2042. It seems like a very interesting system to put in place, especially considering obviously DICE made Battlefront 2, so this is a company that has done this before. It's not like they've just seen it in another game and gone, oh, we should try that. Like, it's the same company who's done it. So I kind of wondered, okay, they obviously had the battle point system in Battlefront. Maybe they kind of thought that was a good system, let's see how it works in this game, and were sort of testing it in terms of the community reaction, which so far seems to be pretty positive from what I've seen. Now, that could just be a tinfoil hat theory, and they could literally have just put it in because it's a limited time mode and they wanted to change things up. So that is obviously just pure speculation at this point, but that was something I wondered straight away. I kind of thought, I wonder if they're actually testing that for the future of Battlefield. Now, I personally think it is such a great way to balance the vehicles in 2042 and even future games as well. I think this would be really good to put into the next Battlefield game because it really just helps with, I guess, the pacing of the game and just generally the balance as well, because you can still get vehicles just as easily. This isn't putting like a cap on how many times you can get a vehicle or anything like that. If you're good at the game, or even if you just play the objective, you can still get vehicles just as easily, but you have to actually earn them first. So you can't just sit in the menus and wait until one blows up and then you can grab the next one. You actually have to get out there on the battlefield and earn the vehicle in the first place, which I'm a very big fan of. In terms of what I'm talking about with the pacing, it kind of helps, I guess, determine the pace of the game early on and later on in the game as well. So for example, at the start of the game, if no one has any ascension points, then obviously you can't pick a vehicle. That means that at the start of a game, there's not just tanks rolling around and dominating the game early on. It means that it's going to be very infantry focused at the beginning of the game, which is probably the most crucial point of the game, because obviously if a team rushes in and captures the central point in Conquest, they're probably a good chance of winning that game. That's like the most important thing you can do straight away. And yet if one team has a really good tank player and the other team doesn't, that tank is probably going to dominate the start of the game and just, eventually lead to that team winning. Whereas if you even the playing field and it pretty much has to start as all infantry, that just makes it a little bit more fair. And then at that point, then the tanks can start rolling in after that sort of initial battle has taken place. On the flip side of that too, it also allows vehicles to become kind of like more relevant at the end of a game too. We've seen that in Control already, that they are very important at the end of the game because people have got more ascension points kind of saved up from all of their actions throughout the game. And obviously in Control, they actually make it happen so that they're essentially unlocking more vehicles for each team as each phase goes on. And it was a pretty similar system in Battlefront 2 as well. So at the start of the game, no one was running around as a hero because no one had enough battle points to get them. But then later on in the game, there were more heroes, there were more reinforcements. And then actually in the final phase of each match, they would actually unlock 2 more heroes for each team, meaning that the end of the game was even more chaos, and it was just perfect in that sense. So it is a very similar system to that game, and I think it worked really well. Obviously, it's a bit different between a hero and a vehicle. They're not quite the same, but I personally just think that it is a great way to actually, help with the pacing of the game, help with vehicles being a bit less dominant at the start and maybe a bit more influential at the end of the game, and just kind of allowing infantry players to have a little bit of a, I guess, buffer period at the start of the game where it is really important that infantry actually take control of the map, and And then at that point, the vehicles can come in and, be more of a help than the absolute domination factor that they currently are. Now, I know that the Battlefield purists are going to hate this idea, and probably vehicle mains even more so. A lot of people are going to say, oh, it's not broke, so why would you fix it? And I do kind of get that. I think people are going to be pretty scared of any changes coming to Battlefield after 2042 with like the specialist system and stuff like that. I think people just don't want any more change. They want the games to go back to how they were. And like I said, I do get that, but this isn't that drastic of a change in my opinion. It's not like the specialist system compared to the class system. That's obviously a huge drastic departure from how it used to be. Whereas with this system, it wouldn't really change the vehicle system at all. It's really just a like glorified respawn timer at the end of the day. So I don't think it's that drastic of a change. I don't think people should be like worried about it in that, oh, it's not how Battlefield used to be, so let's not do it. DICE have always done changes like this through their games. It's just when they go too far with it, like the specialist system, for example, that is when it can really backfire. But this isn't that big of a change in my opinion. Either way, I am keen to hear your thoughts down below. Do you like the Ascension system in Control, and is it something you guys would actually be interested in seeing in a future Battlefield game as like a permanent system to pretty much balance the vehicles and just help out with the pacing of matches? Or do you think it's stupid and you think it should just be how it always has been in Battlefield? I am definitely keen to hear your thoughts. For me personally, I genuinely hope that this becomes a permanent thing, just because I know what works in previous games. It may not work in Battlefield, maybe it'll backfire, I don't know, but I know for a fact it has worked in previous games, and I think it would be a really, really good way to essentially just help with the pacing and the balancing of vehicles, where they'll still be very, very influential, just as influential as they currently are, but they're not really like spammable, if that makes sense. Either way, let me know your thoughts down below. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.